I'm David.
And I'm Justine.
We're two athletes living with MS
And this podcast is about the real stories of coming back to sport.
or starting fresh after illness, injury, or a diagnosis with long-term challenges.
It's about learning how to return on your own terms. This is Adaptive Limits.
What's up, bro?
Hey, bro, what's up? How are you? So I have a surprise for you.
Okay. Surprised.
Um,
Should I be worried?
no, no. You've seen this stuff?
Yeah, that you showed it to me. I think
birthday
last.
cake flavored.
Yeah, the birthday cake.
Yeah, birthday cake
Tailwind.
flavored
Okay.
Tailwind. Yeah.
Yes.
So I brought that, but I also brought.
I didn't you say your dream was to like have some birthday cake Oreos and
Yes.
wash it down with the birthday cake Tailwind?
Yeah. So that's what
I
we're
love
gonna
it.
do.
I love it.
That's what
What a
we're
great
doing.
way. What a great way to kick off our 7th episode. Oh, and I love that you have the Oregon Grand Fondo glass that you're drinking it out of. I love it. I love it.
Podium.
Podium. I love it. So how is it? Is it everything you dreamed of, Justine?
It's so good. It's so good. But I think I have to. You gave me the idea of dipping the
Yes.
Oreo.
Because, people dip their Oreos in milk. Why not dip your birthday cake Oreo into birthday cake Tailwind? I love it. How is it?
Yeah, it's so good. So for
So now,
everyone who is listening, not watching, I just dipped a birthday cake Oreo in birthday cake Tailwind, and it's so good.
oh my God, I love it. So now, like the next time it's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday and you text me, hey bro, we should talk about this on our next pod. I can totally envision you with a glass of Tailwind Recovery and an Oreo, a birthday cake Oreo, and you're dipping it in as you're texting me. I love it.
Saturday night date night. Who are we kidding?
As Karen and I are making grilled salmon and asparagus, you're having your birthday cake Oreos and your Tailwind. I love it. Well,
Yep.
bro, how's training going? I know you're training for a few things. How's that going?
Training's going well. We have the Mudslinger, the 100-mile Fondo coming up
Yeah.
in May. And then I'm all signed up for the Smith Rock 50K in May also. So training for that. It's coming
50K,
along
that's
well.
that's what, like 25-ish miles? 26?
32 miles.
Whoa, wow. Is it a Mudslinger half marathon in 2 weeks, or is that another race?
Oh, no, that's another race. So the Mudslinger half marathon in 2 weeks, and then somewhere in there is the Fondo, and
Okay.
then there's also a gravel bike race I was thinking of signing up for, but I haven't yet.
Bro,
And then I don't know.
bro.
It's like tons of races.
I,
It's my hobby. This is my one hobby. It's like that's all there is to me. There's no more dimension. It's MS and racing. Done.
I love it. Hey, there are worse things, Justine. So
Yeah.
keep doing you and keep doing mudslinger events and races. I saw, actually, was it last weekend, you posted an Instagram story or post in like one of my favorite places in Portland, which is Pittock Mansion. What was that? Like,
Right.
what tell us about that.
Yeah, I was doing speed work. So to run like 8 out of 10, let's say, and run up to the top of Pittock from
Whoa.
Lower Maclay. So that's about 2.5 miles and about 1,000 feet of elevation up.
Whoa.
And then run back down. But the up was the hard part.
Yeah.
And it felt really hard. And when it started to burn, I felt really amazed, and I really channeled this strength that my body remembers from the accident, the strength that my body gave to me to keep me alive. I don't remember the accident, but I think my body remembers it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my body remembers fighting to stay with me and keep me going. And so I was able to channel that and push harder uphill and I PR'd it.
Awesome. Even though you don't remember the accident or the week, right, where you were in a coma, I got to imagine that stuff is just ingrained in your fabric of your being, and your body knows, your body knows maybe more than you even know.
Right.
It knows what you went through. But oh my gosh, that's awesome. You PR'd?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. What a comeback, right? That's like a
Yeah.
total
Yeah.
comeback story.
And speaking of comebacks, we wanted to talk a little bit about our last episode with our guest, Paulina, the cyclist. And yeah, David,
Yeah.
you want to say anything?
Yeah. So our newest bro, I would say, Paulina, man, that episode, like, you look at all the episodes and how many people are listening or watching, and her episode skyrocketed. I think because her story just resonated with so many people. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing. And, I had connected with her months ago, like I said, before we had even talked about doing this podcast. And just knowing that she was recently diagnosed in August and already, already kind of figuring it out is pretty inspirational. That might be my favorite episode so far. Talking to her was just so great.
Yeah, it really was very inspiring. And my sense is that our listeners are people who are really hungry for that sort of thing, for stories like you and I, like Paulina, just regular people just looking for guidance and inspiration on where to get started with activity.
I've gotten so many notes on Instagram of folks I have no concept of whether they know about our podcast or listen to our podcast. And we'll be exchanging a note about something else completely. And then they'll end the note with, "Oh, and love the podcast. Thank you. It's so helpful." I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, I really do think there are a lot of people that this resonates with. And I think
Yeah.
Paulina's story was a great one.
Yeah, definitely. People always ask me how I got back into running after my
Hmm.
diagnosis, like there's some secret formula that I figured out. There isn't a secret. It's not one thing. There's no single thing I can point to and be like that. I think it's a lot of small changes and intention setting the intention of treating your body differently, of stressors and in the foods that you take in and the activities that you do, like changing little by little.
Yep.
It just takes a bit of time. And I think people are really looking for that. And so thank you so much, Paulina, for sharing the hope with us.
Right? Yeah, you don't wake up one day and I got diagnosed yesterday, so today I'm going to become an endurance athlete. That's just not how it works. Your body goes through emotions and maybe it starts going to eat a little better. I'm going to start meditating. I may start to
Right.
do yoga. And these things start to progress. And then as you figure out this disease, you figure out how to adapt, right, to this disease and how to do new things that are going to help you battle this
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think today we were going to get into our stories to talk about when you were first diagnosed, what got you going, what got me back into running, and what got you into cycling in the first place. But before we get into cycling, maybe you can just start by telling us a little bit about what your understanding of it was.
Yeah.
And so share with the audience, because maybe
Yeah.
they don't have MS, and like walk us through your diagnosis and what was that like?
So, for me, and I'm going on 5 years now, uh, I started having symptoms like numbness in my face. I think it was half of my head was numb, half of my tongue. I could barely eat because I couldn't. I could only chew on one side of my mouth, and so and then eventually it started to gradually become balance issues and sensory issues. I actually remember there was a weekend where my family and I were up near in the Columbia Gorge and we were hiking at Horsetail Falls, and they were so terrified that I was going to fall down the hill because my balance was so off, and I just knew that something was not right. Something was wrong. At the time, I remember being dismissed a lot. I remember asking my doctor specifically, because you Google your symptoms and it says, oh, you might have MS, you might have Lyme disease. And I remember asking him point blank, do you think I have MS, doctor? And his response to me was, oh, no, no, no. It affects women more than men. It affects women in their 30s. You're in your 40s. Just dismissed it, right? You don't need to go get an MRI. They cost too much. And even ER doctors were dismissing me. They were trying to tell me it was a shingles virus. They were trying to tell me that it was Bell's palsy. Mind you, I keep going and telling them they're wrong because nothing's getting better and I'm just being dismissed. And I remember finally advocating to get an MRI done. And I remember doing the MRI and it was the MRI machine actually started to overheat. And so anyone who knows MRIs, like you're in this really tight space for like an hour, hour and a half, and they needed to wait for the machine to cool down. And so on top of that, they're like, don't move because we don't want to retake the images. So I'm waiting there. And meanwhile, all these sounds are going off. And I remember having a really fun banter with the MRI tech. And I was telling her how the sounds sounded like the Death Star on Star Wars attack, the buzzer and all that. And we were laughing about it. And then at the very end, once the scan was done, I remember her coming to me and she just had this look of maybe compassion or sadness on her face and said, it was so nice to meet you. Your doctor will be in touch with you within the next day or two. And I remember leaving that appointment and telling my wife she knew something was wrong. And my wife's like, oh no, David, I'm sure everybody thinks that
Ugh,
your mind's playing tricks on you.
yeah.
She didn't see anything wrong. And I kid you not, about an hour later, I remember exactly where I was driving. But I was actually driving to go get blood work because they were trying to rule out Lyme disease. And I
Yeah.
got the call from my neurologist, and I pulled into a parking lot, and he told me those words,
Wow. An
you
hour
have
later?
it was like an hour, hour and a half later that they called me. Yeah. And,
Wow.
yeah, and I didn't know much about MS. I had a friend growing up whose sister had MS. I think she
Yeah.
was diagnosed before they had many meds for it, and I think she might have had some other health issues. She's since passed away. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with her MS or not. I know she had other health complications. But that's kind of all I really knew about MS. I knew Montel Williams, the talk show host. I know that he had it and maybe a few other people. But honestly, aside from that, I didn't know anyone really who had it. We even talked about it last week. Alongside the fear of, oh, wow, I was diagnosed with MS, there's also a sense of relief that I hadn't been crazy. I wasn't imagining these things. I was right the whole time. But I couldn't help but wonder, what does this mean next? What's
Yeah.
next for me?
Right. Yeah. And so did it hit you all right away, or did you take time, or did it take time to process what you had just heard?
At the time, I really just I pulled over, I took a breath. Actually, I called my wife pretty instantly on the phone and told her I'd be home.
Yeah.
I told our kids that night that I was diagnosed, and I would say my mindset shifted pretty quickly that there's nothing I can do about this. I can't change it. There is no cure, but there are maybe things that I can change. And so I would say that my mindset focused really quickly. I would have always expected that I got the news and maybe the next 3 months I would have been curled up in a ball, like, world,
Mhm.
get away from me. But I just kind of thought, I don't got time for that. Time is of
Right.
the essence. I need to lean
Yeah.
in.
And like you weren't a cyclist yet, but what part of your health were you scared of most of losing?
Yeah, I think I would say most people probably go towards mobility, right? I think that's the first thing I thought of. Am I going to end up walking with crutches? Am I going to end up in a wheelchair? If my daughter gets married, am I going to be able to have a first dance with her? Things like that. And even though that a lot of people diagnosed with MS never ever reach a point or a level where they're in a mobility device, I think that's just kind of we're programmed to go there. But that's probably the first thing that I thought about losing. And then also my identity too. Up until that point, I went out to bars with friends and record shopping. And I've always had this cut from a different cloth. And I just felt like now I was just going to become David, this guy with a disability. So I think
Yeah.
that's what I was scared of the most.
Yeah. So your relationship with your body changed then, did it?
Yeah, it didn't change right away. I I would say it probably, and I think we might have even touched on this on another episode. It probably took me about a year, maybe a year and a half. It might have been right around the time I lost my dad and I was no longer
Right.
fitting into clothes that I once fit into. I was really puffy. I was drinking a lot. And and so then I remember thinking to myself, I have to do something. I have to embrace health. I need to embrace exercise. And ironically, it was not cycling that was the first thing. The entry point for me was rowing on
Oh,
an erg.
I thought you
Um
were gonna say jazzercise.
jazz hands, right?
Yeah.
I think it was that summer I told my wife, I want to buy a Peloton row because we already had a Peloton bike that I barely used. And she's like, go for it. And so I did. And I really enjoyed the rowing aspect of it. And for anyone with MS where maybe balance is an issue, I highly recommend rowing because there's something really comforting about the repetition of it because in your brain to do good form you have to like keep thinking to yourself like legs body arms and like having it just be on repeat for like a half hour is a really good thing for folks who struggle with like cognitive issues and balance issues. But that was my first connection. And then it got me kind of the entry point into to fitness. I was really enjoying it. And about like 3 or 4 months after my diagnosis, I started going to like walk MS events and I fundraised a lot. I think I spoke at one 3 or 4 months after my diagnosis, which is super wild to think 4 months after my diagnosis, I was speaking to like 3,000 people about being diagnosed with MS. But, and I liked walk a lot, but there was just never really that connection. So walks are great, but I was just looking for something more than just doing a 1 or a 3 mile route around like a city park or something like that. I was looking for something more that was going to get me to move. And that's when I started thinking to myself, oh, maybe gravel cycling could be fun. And then I was able to connect with the chapter president here who was the bike MS manager. And she's like, you should do bike MS. And I was like, I don't want to buy a bike. And she said, you don't have to. Go to Meat Fight. They'll get you a free bike. And sure enough, I sent in an application. And within like 2 weeks, I think they said I was getting a bike. And I think within like a month, they got me a bike and then the rest is kind of history.
That's so great. Once you got the bike, was it structured or were you just trying to move?
So that's the cool thing about Meat Fight was the condition that they would give you a bike was that you would do a bike MS event and that you would fundraise. I think it was like a couple $100 to do it, and then fundraise whatever your minimum is for bike MS. And as part of that, I actually had access to a coach that works for Meat Fight. She's a triathlete. So she's a runner, cyclist, swimmer, and really helping me. Here's a plan. Here's how much you should be writing in week 1. Here's how much you should be writing in week 2. And it made me feel like, okay, I'm not doing this alone. And I actually have someone that can help me prepare for a bike MS event.
Yeah. So as you started cycling, like what were you most like worried about? Was it falling and tripping or was it brain fog while you're riding and like I take a wrong turn and ride way too far?
Yeah,
Or yeah, what were your concerns?
all of the above, right? It's I didn't have a ton of brain fog at the time, but I still had some mobility issues, and so there's always the
Mhm.
fear of am I going to fall or am I going to get hit by a car? And also just not knowing where to go. Legally, can I ride a bike down this road or so
Oh,
all of that.
you hadn't found Strava yet and,
No, I
like,
wasn't a
Strava
straw
maps, the
I
heat
wasn't
maps,
a
right?
I wasn't a
Right.
Strava bro yet. I wasn't a Strava
Not
bro.
yet.
Yeah. And just to like show you how far I've come, I didn't even have bike computer. I used to actually had
Yeah.
I had a mount on my bike to hold my phone, and that's what I
Okay.
use for my
I thought
stats
you were
and all
gonna
that
say you
stuff.
printed maps. You printed Google Maps.
MapQuest.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
I love it.
Yeah, so you were just starting out, yeah.
Really was.
So, did you do anything that made you feel safer or more in control?
Yeah, there's a neighbor of ours, and he has biked for years. And so when he heard that I was getting into cycling, he was really quick to reach out and say, like, let's go out on a ride. And it felt really good to go out with someone who maybe would know how to change a flat, might be able to help. And then just knowing where to go. Hey, these are some great routes that won't have a lot of traffic or are really easy. So having a support system now, I would say
Right.
90% of my rides are by myself. But I think if you can find somebody to do it with, whether it's a partner or a friend, I think it can be really helpful to have somebody else with you on rides. I think it just adds to a level of, hey, we're in this together. And it felt really good to have a support system
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and would you say that the type of bike made a difference? Like, that you were on a gravel bike instead of a road bike?
Yeah, the bike they gave me it was called an all-road bike. It was a state bike, and it wasn't like super fat road tires. I think they were like 38s or 40s or something millimeters, but it was a steel frame, which made it really heavy. Fun fact, when I completed my first Century ride, I did it on that steel frame, and at the end I had this vision of me like hoisting up my bike that I finished. And I tried hoisting up this 28-pound steel frame over my head and I like almost tipped over. But I think starting off on a gravel bike has its pluses because tires are a little wider. The bike is maybe, if you're
Yeah.
getting a steel or aluminum frame, might be a little heavier and it just might give you a little bit more stability. So I think in hindsight, I'm glad I started on an all road or gravel bike versus a road bike. Now I have both. And, I ride a road bike with 32 mil tires and they're slicks. But at the time, that wasn't my concern was can I knock off 1 mile per hour on my time?
Yeah.
It was, hey, I just want to, get healthier and move and feel comfortable. And maybe even a steel bike is a good option. I think it adds
Yeah.
stability.
Yeah, I started with the steel gravel bike when I was coming back into cycling as well, so definitely agree with you. The
Don't they say
heavier
steel is real? Isn't that the saying? Steel is real.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so what kept you going in that early phase?
I think what kept me going was it took a minute, but when you slowly start to see your body changing for the better, and also knowing that I had some control over this, like I got to choose whether I rode the bike as a spandex dork, totally spandexed out. People just saw me as a guy on a bike who was riding, and maybe at some point, a guy who looked fit and on a bike. And then maybe at some point, a guy who was an athlete on a bike. And never is it a guy with MS on a bike. And I think that's what
Yeah.
kept driving me and what continues to drive me.
Yeah, so, like, as that identity as a cyclist and as a fit person came to be, it gave you a sense of confidence.
The identity piece is huge. I think we
Yeah,
always talk about it,
it
and it's
is.
probably one of the trickiest parts of our diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the trickiest parts, but one of the most like not heal it's not going to heal your MS, but finding that identity that make you feel confident and make you feel good about yourself.
For sure.
I think for many of us, like, movement isn't just exercise. Like, it is that identity. It becomes so real and, like, It's how we regulate. It's how we feel strong and we build confidence. And like when a long-term physical challenge shows up, like that identity is something that can lift us back up, like lift our spirits up, like get us moving. Was there a moment where you started to feel that identity taking shape? Did you look in the mirror in your spandex and go, I'm a cyclist. That's a cyclist if I've ever seen one."
Oh my gosh. What I would say, it maybe if I had to look back, it
Yeah.
was when I first applied to Meat Fight and I knew nothing about cycling at all. And one of the questions said, "How many miles do you want to do for a bike MS?" And I put down like 20 because I thought that was just what are the chances I could even do
Yeah.
20? And they got back to me and they said, "Well, because you're not in any mobility devices or anything like that, we'd like to see you maybe aim for a little bit more." And so then I kind of just said, "Screw it, let's go for a hundo." And I said, "Let's do a century." And that's what I started training for. So I think when I got done with that century ride was
Yeah.
when I was okay, this is bigger
Okay.
than I expected it to be.
As you struggled to lift your steel bike in the air, you
Well,
said, "That this is who I am."
during that ride, I remember we got to about the 30 or 40-mile mark and I
Yeah.
missed a turn. And when I
Oh.
got to the next rest stop, I was like, "Wait a minute, what happened to the last rest stop?" And they're like, "Oh, you took a wrong turn. So now you're on target to do the 66-mile ride, not the 100." And I was, "Wait a minute. I didn't sign up for this. I've done 60 miles
Ah,
before. I need to do 100."
I love this.
And I was just on AM Northwest, which is a show here in Portland, talking about how I was gonna do 100 miles with MS, and I was like, "I can't go home with
Yeah.
anything but 100 miles." So I rode back. So I backtracked to the
Yeah.
last, rest stop. So people are coming towards me. I'm going backwards, and they're going like, "Where's this guy going?" And so then we had done the math that if I had gone back, then I would maybe get to about 100 miles. So then I'm kind of back on track. And at about, I think 75 miles, I was on the last climb. And as I was descending it, my chain derailed and got lodged in between
No.
the frame and the wheel,
No.
and I couldn't get it off. So
Oh, no.
I called the SAG vehicle and they came to get me. And so the guy was like, "Oh, you need to ride back?" I was like, "No, I just need help getting my chain back on."
Yeah.
And he was okay. And so he pulled out some tools and we
Oh
worked on
my
my bike
god.
and he got it back on. He adjusted the derailleur for me. And then he said, "You're awesome, dude, that you want to finish
Yeah.
this race." And I turned to him and I said, "And I have MS too." And he was like, "Yeah," because he had no idea that I was riding with MS.
Right,
And
right.
and and when it was all said and done, Justine, I rolled back in with like 101 miles for the day. And I think that was the turning point of,
Oh.
hey, this is a big deal and this is gonna be a big part of my life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're like, "Oh, that's like," I'm like, you're bringing me to tears. That's
and
so amazing that you were like, I set out to ride 100 miles. I get to ride 100 miles today. So this is happening." Like,
yeah.
good for you.
And
Amazing
and it wasn't like
determination.
and it wasn't, "Hey, my body's not allowing me to," or I'm
Yeah.
struggling physically. It was just these like a wrong turn and a
Right.
mechanical failure, and I was gonna do
Right.
everything I could to get that hundo. And then crossing that finish line and seeing Karen and the kids there and giving them a hug and my medal. And
Yeah.
I just hope one day when my kids grow up, and everybody goes through adversity. Everyone's going to
Yeah.
go through things that are not ideal or not on the bingo card. And I hope they remember that moment and think, "Hey, man, my dad finished his hundo and he continues to do it." That's the hope, is that they see me continuing to do it.
So, of the many things, what has cyclists given to you now that you're fully in it, that you identify as a cyclist? We've already talked about this various things it's given you, but maybe you could summarize that for us.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just given me I think it's almost been a therapy. It's been therapeutic not only for my body, but I think for my mind too.
Yeah.
There's something therapeutic about climbing up a mountain and working really hard. And what's the saying in cycling? Suffering is a privilege. And so some of these climbs are suffering. Like when you're going up a 5 mile climb at like a 6% average, your body wants to give up, but you don't. So I think it just has helped me mentally and physically at the same time, and I've fallen in love with it. So tell me about you. What's your story? Like, we know a lot of what happened with your gnarly crash that you had and all of that, but we don't know a ton about your MS story. So tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, it started in the fall of 2015. I woke up and the skin on my stomach all the way running down my right leg felt numb, as if someone had injected me with Novocaine, injected
Oh,
my, like, the feeling of, because I'd had cavities. So that feeling when you have Novocaine, it was in my skin, in my leg.
wow.
And turns out that's, I watched a video later that was, someone was describing their neuralgia, and they were, someone poked me with Novocaine. So that was like, oh, well, shit.
Yeah.
Not a good sign, people. So, but yeah, I also had issues like I was losing my bladder. And why did I talk about losing my bladder so much on
It's an
here?
MS thing. The more you normalize it, Justine, the more we normalize it, maybe people will not be embarrassed to talk about it because you know what?
Yeah,
It is what it is, man. It's part of the
yeah.
club. It you know what? It's part of being in the MS club.
Yeah. Yep. So I went to the doctor, and the first doctor I went to when all this happened decided that it was a UTI and I had low vitamin D. So low vitamin D, by the way, that's another sign. So
Yeah.
things are adding up, but the doctors are like, "You're a perfectly healthy young 25-year-old. You're fine. You have a UTI." So, but time went on and the numbness got worse.
Or like was it getting worse day by day, week by week, or was it like
Yes.
did it go away and come back?
No, for me, the numbness, it definitely got worse.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to the point where I was struggling to run, but that
Mm,
was only partly because of fatigue. My gait was off when I was moving because I just wasn't sensing where my body should be in space.
mhm.
So yeah, no, the numbness definitely just gradually got worse and worse, and then and the fatigue that hit, that got worse and worse. My drop foot started, so that also affected my running. And so I went to a different doctor to ask about it. And I went to a neurologist, and they sent me to a different neurologist who was a specialist in, of all things, MS, which I like, but she was a specialist in, multiple things, but one of the
Sure.
things was MS is what she's known for. So then all the pieces were adding up. So then that neurologist, when I told her about the Novocaine thing, that neurologist was, "We're gonna send you for an MRI." And I was
Oh.
like, so she was onto it. So by the time that I got through seeing the new set of doctors and doing insurance things so that I could get the MRI, by that time a couple months had passed. So the fact that you got a call after your doctor, after your MRI, that's like, you must have just had, like, they were like, "We got to tell this guy."
Well, fun fact, not so fun fact, but I had MS, they said, for years before
Yeah.
my diagnosis. And
Yeah.
I think I was diagnosed with north of 25 lesions on my brain.
Wow.
None on my spine at the time. I have one now,
Yeah.
knock on wood, and that's the only one. Knocking on whatever feels like wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, it maybe that was it. Like we need to get
Right.
this guy,
Yeah.
and we need to let him know stat.
Yeah. Yo, get some DMTs into this guy.
Get some vitamin D.
Yeah. Vitamin D. Vitamin D. Fill it up.
5,000 units a day. Like I don't mess around.
Yeah.
Like I have
Me
to take that
too.
many. Yeah.
But so time passes, and then March 1st of 2016, I get
Mhm.
the phone call that's the, like, "I'm sorry to tell you, you have MS."
Ugh,
Which, poor doctor. Can you imagine?
that's
Like,
tough.
that's tough. And she helped me get to a point where I could get treatment, and that should be of great satisfaction, but the act of calling and telling somebody such terrible news is that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember thinking when she told me that, I remember thinking, "So, when can I run again?"
Did
Because I
did
was
you at
just
all feel like running was anywhere in your orbit? Do you feel like you were that far? How quickly did your body change? This was a course of a few months, or how long had the process been at this point?
Yeah, this was over the course of a couple months. So I had detrained. Definitely. Cuz I was running less and less. So I was at peak training for the New York Marathon at the
That's
time,
right.
and then I had gradually been running less and less. So there's no way I was running a marathon that day.
You're
Yeah.
probably thinking, "Okay, I wanna get back into running," but you still
Right.
have the drop foot. Your fitness level has probably dropped because you haven't been running as much. What was your first step back like?
Yeah. With the drop foot, I was really worried about tripping. And I did actually
Mm.
sprain my ankle and trip a few times early on when I just tried to go back out running because I just did not have the coordination or stability that I used to have. So the MS had affected my coordination as well. And so my first step back was actually to start running on a treadmill. And I had like formerly been like treadmills don't count. I was that asshole, like like, okay, let me just tell you and everyone who's listening, treadmills count, period.
Absolutely, they count.
Yes.
Treadmills count, e-bikes
Treadmills count.
count,
Yes.
everything counts,
Yes.
everything counts.
Moving counts.
Yes.
Yeah, so, uh, and the reason why I ended up on the treadmill was it was predictable. I was walking, jogging, running on a smooth, steady surface. There were no potholes, no cracks, nothing
Yep.
that I could trip on or roll an ankle on. And
That's why I liked the row, because it's that
yeah,
you're flat on the floor going back and forth, and the treadmill
right.
was like that for you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So it was down in my apartment. The apartment I lived in, there was a basement gym. So I spent hours in this basement just walking and then jogging and eventually running on this treadmill.
Like, what kept you going? So if you're spending hours on this treadmill and walking and running and it's in your basement, so you can go to it all the time, every day, what kept you going while you were on it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, treadmills are so boring and like I so what I actually did was I watched inspiring sports documentaries. These documentaries about running and cycling that were just these
Oh,
amazing athletes. They were I think all unprofessional, just
yeah.
like not pro athletes, just like everyday people athletes doing these amazing endurance feats, and they were just so inspiring. So I would just load them up and like go for hours.
That's funny you say that, because you know what? We should do an episode where we talk about what we watch on like Zwift or on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, there's a Netflix like docu-series called Unchained, and it's where they followed the Tour de France riders during the Tour de France. And
Oh,
it got canceled. They only have 3 seasons, but I'm constantly watching it on
I'm
my
gonna have to
Zwift.
watch that.
I'm
Yeah,
constantly watching it, and there'll be this time where they're doing this like crazy climb in France, and I'll be hitting a tough threshold on my Zwift, and I'm like totally
totally.
pumping. But
Yes, like when you're watching these things, it's like when they are doing the hardest stuff and that music is playing, the emotional over the
yeah,
overtone of everything. And you're feeling so much for the people and you're like, go. I want
yeah,
you to win and I'm gonna go too.
yeah. When did it start to feel like your identity was shifting from a casual runner to
Yeah.
an ultra runner and a cyclist?
Yeah. So it wasn't until I moved to Oregon in 2020, actually. So so I got diagnosed was 2016. So it wasn't until 2020. That year I ran my or no, but then in 2021, I'd have to look at my ultra sign up because I moved here in 2020 to Oregon, where I'm from. And then, so it would have been 2021, I guess, was the year that I did my first 50K in the mountains.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'd done a flat 50K in Virginia, but this was like my first real like big girl ultra was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this 50K Old Cascadia by Alpine Running. And it was so brilliant. It was my first time like packing my vest for the whole journey and dealing with blisters. And I had my blister kit, like
Oh,
dealing with bringing like wipies in case like I had to go to the bathroom and sleeping in my car the night before and making new friends. I made a lifelong friend at it. I'm still friends with her. She just had her baby. She's so great. Hi, Catherine.
I
and
love it.
um, but we like actually just we were sleeping in our cars next to each other. I was, oh, good, there's another girl here,
Yeah, right?
And
Yeah,
she said later that she was like, oh, good, there's another girl here,
I would
and we like,
imagine.
hey, bro, I got you, like.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
And then I started gravel riding that summer too in 2021. So I gravel ridden as a kid on the farm, and like me and my brothers riding around, bombing down the hill on our
Yeah.
bikes. So as a kid, then I didn't cycle much for a while, but
Mhm.
then I picked up a
And
gravel bike.
steel, like, what was
Yeah,
it made out of?
yeah, so it was steel also. So it was
Okay.
I had the idea also of lifting my bike over my head. I had the fantasy of that too. No,
It's so it's so
it's
heavy
so
after
heavy.
100 miles. And now both my bikes are carbon, and so they're super light. They weigh like 18
Yeah.
pounds or something. But I think when I weighed my steel one, when I went to go get it fitted, it was like 28 pounds. And that was without a saddlebag on it and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So I can only imagine how heavy it was during the race.
Yeah.
So what has running and cycling given you since your diagnosis?
Yeah. I think that they have given me this confidence that I can do hard things. So things like living with MS or recovering from a traumatic brain injury, i- it's if I can run this 50K or if I can ride 100 miles, if I can do these things, like, then I know if I can not only do them for the 6 hours that you're doing them, but if I have the ability to learn the skills and the knowledge and the techniques and to learn what I need to know to do them, then
Mhm.
I can learn what I need to know to do this MS thing and live this life really fully with MS.
I love it. And what would you say is your biggest success?
What it looks like was repetition, lots of consistency, lots of hours in that basement on
Mhm.
that goddamn treadmill, like lots of hours running loops around the same dirt trail. Sure, there were definitely a few big moments. So one is as I said, I was training for the New York Marathon when I got MS, and so 3 years later, I got into the New York Marathon again, and I ran it, and I went and I did it, and it was just so fun. It's so many people are out there, and it's so much community, so it was great. So that's the first one. If I can cheat and give you more than that,
Yeah, I'll let you cheat.
two would be the summer of 2021. That summer I just told you about.
Yeah.
I ran my first mountain 50K, and actually I did two 50Ks that year, both in the mountains. And I ran a 40-mile race around a different mountain. And then I
Whoa.
also got into gravel riding. So that was a big summer. That was like my first big athletic summer post MS diagnosis that really felt like I was coming back. One thing I hope people can take away from that is like, I didn't become that overnight. I was diagnosed in 2016, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. It took 5 years before I was like, able to do the ultra running and the
Before you
cycling that
came
I was
before you
able
became
to.
before you became a badass.
Oh.
No, you know what? You're right. I think for me too, I I think folks have this misconception that stuff happens really quickly,
Yeah.
And I think it's the world we live in. You watch a show and by the next episode they're fit. You watch a
Right.
movie and the next scene, guess what?
Yeah.
Now they're ripped and they got a six pack and it takes time. And
Yeah.
I'm now a few years in and I'm nowhere near where I thought I would be. I'm still really happy where I'm at and I love the endurance I have and how gosh, last weekend I went for a 65-mile ride. I would have never thought that was possible years ago. But that if you had asked me where will you be 3 years after starting working out, I would have been shredded and I'm like Iron Man and it doesn't it's literally we say it a lot, it's brick by brick and
Yeah.
you just got to keep working at it and there does get a point where you turn a corner a little bit and you actually can see it a little more, but it's
Yeah.
still the progress is still, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, totally. I think for me, one of those moments that I could see it coming together was when I did the 40-mile race that went around Mount St. Helens.
Mhm.
And this one, there were these 2 people that I was running along and they were ahead of me and I went to pass them and they latched on in like, I don't mean in a bad way, but like they latched on to me. And so I was like, "Oh, hi, you can pass me." And they were like, "No, we're with you." And I was, "Okay, where are you from?" They were like, "Georgia." And I was like, "Okay, what do you do?" "I'm a dentist." And so they were totally done and not
Mhm.
wanting to keep going. And I just chatted at like I did Oregon friendly chat with them, sure.
Yeah.
And they finished and we all like so the last 10 miles we were together and they finished and at the end they were like, "We wouldn't have done this without you, thank you so much."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um it was it was really powerful because I was like, I have MS and I just helped people who don't have it finish this really challenging thing.
Mhm.
So it was like, not only can I do hard things, but I am still strong enough to help other people do that. So
Yeah.
it was really big for me. And that's what I take away, seeing my own strength and that I
Yeah.
have what it takes to get through this. So,
Yeah, and that reminds me of when I took that wrong turn and my chain derailed and the SAG guy is, "You got this," and then when I have MS, he's just like, "Whoa." He had no idea, and that's just a great feeling when you can do these things and then say, "I'm doing it with MS too,"
yeah.
right?
So this is just my experience. Thank you for letting me go on and on. I always say like I'm not special and so I really believe that like so many of us like health impact or not are capable of so much more. Just just get out there and move.
Yeah, you know what? That's perfectly said, and I think I've been ending every one of our episodes with a episode takeaway, and I think I have to end this one with first off, if you haven't tried birthday cake Tailwind and birthday cake Oreos and dipping the Oreos in the Tailwind, you should, as Justine, promoed on the episode. But really, I think for me, it doesn't happen overnight. Don't be scared to do it. I think that's the fear is, what will I look like when I'm running or what will I look like on the bike or just being self-conscious about that and just know that there's a community. You just got to go out and find it and just move and just give it time. And it may look different, but I don't think many people, if any, will regret it. So, we are going to be taking a mid-season break. So we're going to take, I think, a few weeks off. We'll see, kind of, I think we wrote down on our notes, kind of like Game of Thrones, right? Like they do a
Yeah.
mid-season break. So we're
Like
doing the same thing.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like Walter White, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but in the meantime, as we're figuring out the feedback on this podcast has been so positive, and all the comments I'm getting of people saying they needed this, and that's why we're doing it, because we were searching for it and couldn't find it. And so if you want to be on the podcast or know someone who would be great on the podcast or would like us to talk about something on the podcast, let us know. Shoot us a note. Justine is at Run with MS. I'm at the Foggy Cyclist and adaptive_limits. And we always remind everyone we're not physicians, we're not nutritionists. So anytime you start something new or start a workout program or start a new diet, talk to the professionals. We are not those professionals, but these are things that work for us and that we've heard and we like to talk about. Just remember, just because you're living with MS doesn't mean you can't go out and do really hard things. If anything, they're maybe even harder, which makes them even more epic, right?
Definitely.
All right. Well, bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.